there's a huge problem in gymnastics right now with overtraining and overworking. And so I've also learned how to deal with that, how to overcome that.
Yeah.
And how to work past that. But I've also learned, okay, what can especially when it comes to training other people, okay, what can I take from the conditioning that I learned in gymnastics and apply it to other people in a safe and fun way.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Healthy Living Wichita podcast with Go Time Training. I'm your host, Raymond Elliott, lead personal trainer at Go Time Training in Northeast Wichita, Kansas. I've been in the fitness industry for over 20 years now, and I've seen it all. This podcast cuts through all the fads and gimmicks to give you the science-based truth on all things fitness and nutrition, so you don't have to try to figure it out on your own. If you want to live happier and healthier and get the scoop on how to work out, eat right, and keep a positive mindset, you're in the right place. It's go time. Now, let's get to the show. Healthy Living Wichita with your host, Ray, or Raymond, whatever's easier, and Sean. Sean?
What up?
Back again, living the dream. It's winter time. It's almost Christmas. So almost Christmas, yeah. So this is actually still before Christmas. So Merry Christmas, everybody out there, shopping out there. What size shirt do you wear?
Extra large.
Extra large. Yeah. Almost medium. So just FYI, that's on your list. Anyways, introduce yourself a little bit today, Sean. We'll get rock and rolling.
Yeah. So I'm Sean Wheeler. I've been a trainer here for a few months, more than a few months probably.
I'm sure I have it somewhere. I'm supposed to keep track
something like that.
You're in
Yeah, I love it here. It's been good.
Good.
Yeah. I'm excited for the next year and just got excited to learn more, meet new clients and new people. And
yeah, you've really advanced your knowledge and done a great job. You've been a great asset to us. So we're glad to hear. Tell us a little bit more about just some of your background. More, what is Sean? The essence of Sean. We need that in just maybe like 100, 200 words.
Okay. Yeah. Well, to start off, I was actually a competitive gymnast for 10 years.
Wow.
So about when I was from 8 years old up all the way until about junior, senior year in high school, I competed through USAG.
I don't know what that
which
means.
is basically just the organization that's directly in line with the Olympics.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And I competed 3 years as a level 10, which basically just means you can think of it as like two steps below Olympic level.
Wow. So you're BA. I don't know if we can say the what that is on I don't know. Anyways,
So yeah,
you're bad.
That obviously influences a lot of who I am and my training.
Yeah.
Just because I grew up my whole life spending 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, just doing gymnastics.
A lot of dedication.
And learning from that. And
yeah.
And so after I was done competing, I even coached for 3 or 4 years.
That's why you want to charge me. I got it. Well, we can work out a payment. I would love to do gymnastics. Honestly, it's always been something. And then being from Oklahoma with OU, just having such a great gymnastic pedigree, a lot of the guys and I end up in the Olympics. We get to represent the Olympics, and typically OU gymnastics and men and women win. They're national champions a lot of times. So it's a very big thing for Oklahoma. But I just always me as a person that looks at biomechanics and strength, is like, even when I watch the Olympics, I'm like, yes, Usain Bolt would murder me in running. My running and biomechanics are not that great, but I can run. I'm a pretty fast runner. Swimming, Michael Phelps would kill me. I got like 3-inch arms. I would die, but I can swim. Doing a backflip on a balance beam, flipping 14 times in the air on, double bars, things like that. Unbelievable. Yeah. Like the amount of strength, core strength, balance, conditioning, motor unit learning that goes in that. I think is so much far past so many other athletics. In fact, I believe that I would say that gymnasts are probably one, if you look at a full spectrum of just everything that entails in athleticism, depending on your terminology, is probably one of the most athletic people on the planet. It's amazing what they can do.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite. That's my favorite event in all Olympics is gymnastics. That being said, that's why you're going to start teaching me. I feel like I have a knack for it, and I could probably go and do, pretty much be in Olympics at 40.
In a year from now, Raymond will be able to do a backflip.
I've done backflips before. Backflips really are actually never a problem, and I used to love doing them all the time. Now at 40, I have premonition, so I'm like, I want to go do a backflip like that. And then I see like ACL tears, back going out, landing on my head. But I've always been have the ability and have strength to do a lot of things that typically like one-arm pull-ups and weird things like that a lot of people can't do. That being said, enough about me. Unless you want me, we got about 25 more minutes, so I think I can fill that up. No, so obviously that being one, just that dedication in that alone, working out that hard has taught you a lot of work ethic, and all those things that you've had to probably instill into your clients, and then just your own abilities to improve your craft in other areas.
Oh yeah, for sure. And good and bad. You know, there's pros and cons to going that hard for so long.
Yeah.
There's a huge problem in gymnastics right now with overtraining and overworking, and so I've also learned how to deal with that, how to overcome that.
Yeah.
And how to work past that. But I've also learned, okay, what can I, especially when it comes to training other people, okay, what can I take from the conditioning that I learned in gymnastics and apply it to other people in a safe and fun way. So like you look at those gymnasts in the Olympics, and they're just crazy built guys that are just insanely strong.
You're right, yeah.
But a lot of times, especially before you even get to college in gymnastics, your strength is all built from body weight exercises. Yeah. I didn't lift a single dumbbell or weight until I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
Which was only 3 years ago. Which is pretty crazy to think about.
I hate you, Sean. No, I'm just joking. No, that's awesome, yeah.
And so I think we can learn a lot from it's not just about lifting heavy weights, it's about our own body and having that connection there.
Yeah, I actually changed up some of my training because I read a good article that literally just talked about that. It was using gymnasts' biceps. They're just like, they're tremendous, right? Like they look almost cartoonish, like some of the biceps on the gymnasts. And they're like, look at these guys. And they're like, most of these guys don't lift weights. It really talked a lot about isometrics and how much isometrics hold. So I started doing banded pull-ups, not assisted, but against me. And then I would hold an isometric for as long as I could in that position, just because that was one of the suggestions that it said that you could do to help build up bigger arms. And I don't know if it's helped that much, but I can see where a lot of those things are at. It's just amazing. Like even basketball players, like they have massive shoulders, but most of the time they're dribbling a ball. So you don't always have to do all that crazy stuff. So how have you implemented some of the gymnastic stuff with your clients, or what are some ways that they can, or some of the things you learned that they can implement?
Well, one thing that's common in gymnastics is we talk about the form on every single event, and a lot of it is basically just squeezing your legs and squeezing your butt as hard as you can. You talking about on a pull-up, right? Yeah. And that can do a lot for your body, especially when let's just take like a pull-up, for example, just a normal pull-up. A lot of guys will just, earthquake? So many earthquakes.
Go ahead.
A lot of guys on a pull-up will just have their legs just dangling.
Right, yeah.
And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it from a gymnast perspective, we'd call that sloppy, because we want our legs basically just squeezing as hard as we can together, squeezing our butt as hard as we can. And what that actually does is create a stable base. Yeah. So when our arms are in back are pulling our body up, it actually can be easier if you have a strong
core. More efficient, right? You're losing less energy out of the body, and you're maintaining it more within your probably arms, right? Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of people to do when they do pull-ups this way, or like leg raises. You'll see people and they're all over the place, and I think that's a core stability. Or probably if you said, hey, when you do leg raises, squeeze your glutes and tighten your legs up a little bit, they probably would have a little bit less of that swinging thing that happens.
Or, even just like a pull-off press where you have the band and you're holding it out and it's trying to rotate you. If you have a strong base and you're squeezing your butt and legs as hard as you can, that creates a foundation for your core to be able to work off of that.
Yeah. I think people miss that a little bit. And that's a common cue, right? Squeeze your glutes. Yeah. Even contract your legs. I think a lot of people, like in a plank and different things, don't do that. But it's amazing how much that can fix patterns, and how much. A lot of reason why we're doing is because we want the glutes to become a little bit more responsive, and obviously we're trying to build upon those. But that helps stabilize you so much, and if that becomes more hyperactive in life just because you're doing that on a regular basis and teaching it to when you do stuff, then you're just going to have probably less injury and be able to be more mobile and feel stronger in every aspect. So squeeze your butt, people, everybody. He yells at me to do it all the time, and it's really weird, but it's a common thing around here. Squeeze your glutes, as we typically say.
Squeeze your glutes.
Booty. I have a Polish client, me and you both do, Evelina, and it's pupa. So that's something I learned.
Poopa.
So you guys can poopa, which makes sense, really, if you think about it. Poopa.
Straight to the point.
So squeeze the poopa. So you tell her that next time. Squeeze your poopa, and she'll look at you crazy and probably disconnect the virtual. But yeah, so that's one thing. Obviously, what are some other things that you can incorporate that you learned from your years of gymnastics and being a BA?
Yeah, well, I loved what you said about like the isometric stuff. Like obviously, so next year when everyone's watching the Olympics, I was sad it got moved, but COVID.
Yeah, COVID.
But when you watch the Olympics, especially on rings, for guys, it's half the routine is isometric holding.
Unbelievable.
And just really hard positions, and obviously that's like the highest level of like strength isometrics you can probably get to. But that is one of the events. That whole event, rings, is known for strength.
Yeah.
But they're not doing a lot of movement. It's all just very still isometrics.
Which is some of the hardest stuff to do, really.
The event's nickname is actually Still Rings because of how still everything is supposed to be.
I always think of like Vince Vaughn and old school, like smoking, still holding, but it's got to bring that. But yeah, that stuff is really difficult. And isometrics really has been like a kind of a huge thing that people have been studying a lot more on. So it seems like there's always something. For a long time, it was time under tension, right? Eccentric, concentric loading, time under tension, what's proper, Polkin principles, all these things. It was all like tempo of how you should lift, what is important to that. And that was like for a long ways. Before that was all concentric. They were like, hey, we should look at the eccentric and then let's look at the tempo. But now I've been reading a lot of research. I think it started with isometrics, really looking at rehab and how that built strength without movement. Because like if you have a knee problem or a joint problem and you don't have to move it and you can build the muscles around it, that's probably a pretty big win. But now we're seeing a lot more on hypertrophy, which is building muscle mass. And so those are some of the studies I've been reading on and trying to incorporate a little bit more with my clients, and I probably honestly should do more. We do isometrics like with plank and core a lot, but really with all muscle groups, there's actually been lots of science that's shown how much. And I think gymnasts is like the easiest way for them to look because we're very visual, right? So you're like, isometrics work, and like, gymnasts. They do. Right?
There you go.
Yeah. So isometrics is a great thing.
Those are also really great to
and that's holding for you guys out there.
Yeah, isometric just means holding.
Yeah, static. You're no change in muscle length if you really want a contraction with no change in muscle length if you really want to get proper to it. So.
And the isometrics actually pair really well with doing them after a concentric motion. So say you're doing bicep curls, you do as many as you can. Say that's 10, and then like that last rep you hold halfway.
Kind of like a pull-up, and then at the end, holding it. Yeah.
Just holding it as long as you can. It actually takes your muscle even farther to that failure point, I guess, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah.
Where it actually creates a better stress effect on the muscle.
And I think also if you're like I'm not saying that I can sit there and hold up in that position, but if I pre-fatigue, I think I can get more out of that isometric quicker where I don't have to sit up there and hold. So if you're one of those people that could hold a bicep curl, something like that for a long time, it might be beneficial to kind of pre-fatigue it to that full range of motion.
Way more enjoyable to only have to hold 10 seconds at the end of your set than to have to sit there for a minute.
ISO is very brutal. When I'm up there, there's probably 2 or 3 times that I want to quit before I need to.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, and I might just be a personal thing, but I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I'm almost done, and I have to tell myself, like, until I, like, just start falling down, like, until I start feeling myself, then that's when I quit. But there's 2 or 3 times where I'm just like, okay, I'm good. And there's probably 2 or 3 times where I quit before I actually hit that failure or close to that failure part. So that's another thing when I isometric. It can be grueling, and it is. I'm impatient, so it's a time thing. But yeah, so that will help out in that if you pre-fatigue a little bit, maybe not to wait so long.
Yeah, it can be pretty mentally fatiguing.
Anybody that's held a plank for time, can
just a plank for a minute is rough enough.
Yeah, it's like 4 hours.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So make your life longer. Do more planks. So isometrics, squeezing a booty and a legs to give yourself some more stability. Those are all really, really beneficial things. There's some other things that you think that you learned from gymnastics that people, the wonderful people in our community or just our clients or that you've instilled in them can do?
Yeah, so...
I don't know how many of these got, so just stop me when you're like, that's all. We've done 2.
It's something else I think we can all take away from the gymnastics type of conditioning is mixing coordination with a strength exercise, so or like a core exercise, something that basically just makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
Say you have a plank, instead of just holding a static plank, try to add movement into where you're trying to touch in front of you or move your legs. Or
so anti-movement with movement, right? So like anti-hyperextension, extension, or core activation, isometric with a movement added onto it where you're using levers or your arms.
Yeah, and that's just for any body weight exercise, you can pretty much add some sort of movement to make it more interesting, less boring, and to make it harder so you're actually getting stronger.
Yeah.
Because gymnasts don't just get stronger by just doing more pull-ups all the time. We add in different types of movements and holds and variations to that same exercise to actually get you stronger.
What's your knowledge on acro yoga? Have you done any acro yoga? I started doing acro yoga now, so
I haven't tried that.
I lie out to my acro yoga partner. It's like gymnastics. It's pretty cool. It should be an Olympic sport. I think it's going to be in there pretty soon. I'm gonna try it for acro yoga. But I think all those things, all athletic stuff like that takes core balance, cheerleading, those type of things, probably all kind of STEM closely related. Mm-hmm. Which I think cheerleading, is some people don't look at that, but I think that's very close in gymnastics in some aspects. The way they can control their body, and be able to squeeze their core and have balance. It basically is kind of like gymnastics with like people into music. Yeah. Well, I guess gymnastics is to music too.
They basically just took gymnastics floor event, tumbling, and just added onto it.
Yeah,
a bunch of other stuff.
So what all did you do in gymnastics?
So I did all 6 events of the men's side. So men and women actually have different events in gymnastics.
Right. Yeah.
So for the men's events, I competed on high bar, rings, parallel bars, pommel horse, floor, and vault.
See, that pommel horse is cool too.
And pommel horse was definitely my favorite. That was the one I was the best at.
Really?
Which is kind of unusual in the U.S. The U.S. is really bad at pommel horse.
Yeah.
And so usually people's favorite event is like floor or something.
Right. Yeah.
Or rings or something. And but yeah, pommel horse was always my
I
go-to.
think rings or like the bars would probably be like one of my favorite things to do. But I don't know. It all seems really fun. It seems like an opportunity for me to like fracture my clavicle or break at least 6 or 17 bones. But
yeah, and pommel horse is an interesting event because when you're practicing, you almost every single turn when you're learning something new, you're failing. So you think about on other events like rings or high bar, you usually practice something, you may like not be able to do it, but you won't like fall off really a lot of times.
Right.
Or you'll be going into like a foam pit with squishy foam blocks that
right.
safe.
Makes it a little better.
Horse, it's not super high off the ground. You have padding around you, but it's still takes a lot of coordination with the hands and balance.
Yeah.
With a lot of balancing and core strength. Yeah. And so when you're learning a new skill, what I mean by is you fail every time is you basically are trying it over and over again, and the only way for you to get off that pommel horse is either you make the skill or your hand slips or you hit your knee into the pommel or something that makes you either fall off or fail in some way. And so that event, taught me a lot about just the repetitiveness of like
perseverance,
perseverance,
and keep going, perseverance, whatever.
Yeah.
but to keep going into and that you're gonna fail, but you're gonna get back up. You have to basically go through failure to get that. So it's something that you have to push against yourself, which is probably something also that you can help with your clients because they either feel like they're failing when a lot of times they're not, but they're just not making it there, or they're not getting things quite right, and you have to continue to work on them until they do. That's a lot of what we're doing in the beginning with people until we get those patterns down.
Just learning from your mistakes and making really small improvements at a time. And
that's a huge life lesson, I think, in every avenue. Learn so much from you.
Yeah,
actually, I have a client. We have clients. I guess we share all of them. But Eric, Eric, he's actually trying to do where he just has his feet out. So I might have to ask you for some advice. Can I do it here?
Oh yeah.
But he's doing it on kettlebells. Wants to go to dumbbells, and then eventually plates because he saw a picture of that. So I'm obviously going to help out with core stability. Then there's some of the things that he's already doing. Wrist and ankle or wrist strength, I'm sure, is pretty important on that. But there might be some
we
things
call that an L seat in gymnastics.
An L seat.
L seat.
An L, well, because an
it's
L
just
shape.
L
Yeah,
position.
so he's working on the L seat. He on kettlebells right now, which he can do, but he wants to eventually get to plate. So I may utilize some of your information to see if I can help create a better program that will help get him there quicker, either on his off time or within his semi-private training.
Yeah, that's a great exercise, especially for your core.
Yeah.
And it's a very good isometric core exercise.
Yeah, it's a lot on the shoulder joint and the wrist.
Shoulder stability, wrist stability.
It's like if either one of those off, probably my primary core. But if your core's off, then your shoulders are gone, and if your shoulders are gone, probably it's going to be difficult to rebalance with your core.
And your hip flexors kind of assist with that movement.
Right,
too, trying to hold up your legs in that flexed position.
That ISO hip flex. Right. Yeah. That's a brutal one. So I know he's going to do well at it. I'm excited for him to try that out. Awesome, man. I don't even know what we're talking about at this point. I think gymnastics.
Well, let's talk about some of the other events.
Okay.
Like how if you're trying to train like a gymnast, so to speak, in the gym.
Yeah.
When you take an event like high bar, it's all hanging from a bar, so you have to have a lot of grip strength. So we can actually develop really, really good grip strength just from different exercises from hanging on a bar.
Yeah.
So even starting off with, if you're trying to develop grip strength, which can help you on almost every lift, is you can start off with like a normal hang, just hang trying to see how long you can hang it.
Right.
Once you get really good at that, you can maybe go to where you wrap a towel around the bar.
Yeah.
And you're doing almost like one hand, but you're not. Your other hand's kind of assisting to kind of help.
Right.
And you can even get to that one-handed, just holding from one hand.
That'd be rough, yeah.
Which is a lot harder than
people
think.
But, I can imagine. That's what's crazy about gymnastics and all that stuff. It looks to the person, it looks sometimes relatively easy. Like, I can go do some of those things. Then you get there, it's just like, it's amazing how difficult. But their facial expressions sometimes, it looks effortless. They're just like, floating around. You're like, oh, it's pretty hard.
Yeah. That was just kind of funny because that's something growing up, one of my coaches would always say, you want to make it look perfect and effortless and easy.
Yeah.
Just make it look like it's your everyday job.
It's amazing how that is. So that's a good one. So grip strength, obviously, and like I said, a lot of times in like our lifts, people don't feel like, when you're doing a deadlift, a lot of times it's not the glutes or the hamstrings that can't handle the weight, or even the rectus spinae. Sometimes it's the grip strength, your forearm strength, or sometimes it's your rhomboids that are able to pull back. Sometimes it's those smaller muscle groups, and we don't think about it. Like, I can't get that because my legs are not strong enough. They can be, but the other smaller muscle groups that have to incorporate. So grip strength is obviously very important for a lot of different lifts that we do, especially anything bent over where we have gravity pulling away from our hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and going back to just hanging from the bar, doing... if you're strong enough, being able to do ab work hanging from a bar is actually beneficial in certain ways that doing on the floor is not. So if you think about hanging on a bar, you're actually starting in like a more stretched position from your core,
right? As
opposed to on the floor, it's more in just like a neutral kind of length for the muscle length.
Yeah, some more range of motion. I used to always tell people I would do hanging leg raises after my back and pull up because I would get that lat stretch simultaneously while I'm also working my core. So it's like I'm getting a stretch on my lats a little bit that I just worked. I'm building up a little bit isometrically by holding, and then I'm also, get to hit my abs a little bit. So
yeah. So as a gymnast, we just did a lot of stuff, conditioning,
just hanging
exercise,
around.
Just hanging on the bar.
That's cool.
And
so we have that event hanging. So do some hanging. I doubt a lot of people probably do that out there.
We can talk about the rings again.
Okay, rings.
We already incorporate something with the rings. What makes the rings so difficult is even though the rings are supposed to be still and you're supposed to be isometric when you're doing it, it's actually they move around.
Right.
They're very hard to balance on and so when you think about something like a suspension trainer, like the TRX or the ones we have here,
right?
You're working sort of the same kind of style as a rings routine would work. And that is just suspension training.
Right, the free flowing. Yeah.
Exercises with movement or like where you're trying to...
Instability.
Yeah. So that's already something we incorporate into a lot of our workouts here.
Yeah.
And you can even go to holding yourself on top of a suspension trainer as opposed to just if you don't have rings,
Yeah.
And that creates the same exact effect.
What are you doing? We still got time. We haven't got through all 12 events. Andrew's trying to sneak in like we're not going to talk to you. It's okay if you're on the podcast. Okay, keep going.
But yeah, then obviously we talk about pommel horse, and that's just really a lot of like core and balance.
Right. That L thing is in there too, right? What was it called?
L-seat.
L-seat. Got it. L-seat is in there.
Mm-hmm. And so really anything, if you're trying to train, as if you're doing pommel horse, any sort of like plank movement is going to be very similar. Even from doing like a reverse plank, if you've ever done one of those where you're actually facing with your stomach up and your arms behind you. That'd be like the front of your swing on the pommel horse.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Or you're going to side plank, those hit, when we think about doing a circle on pommel horse, those hit every single range of motion on
I like to do a lot where he just sets 2 benches and you basically head and feet on them and you kind of do a plank that way across where you're laying down, which is obviously kind of reverse as well.
I mean, as far as like floor and vault goes, vault is the one where you just like sprint.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And punch on the vault table and do a trick off of that. But that is a lot of cardio.
Really?
Very, very cardio inducing, just because you are doing things as hard as you can, as fast as you can.
So very anaerobic, right? A
very,
high intensity like sprinting.
Mm-hmm. Lots of power movements.
You're
basically just sprinting, power, we call it a punch or jump, and then you do your skill. And so that would be like the conditioning described for those events.
So anaerobic sprinting, those things, things to do with power, explosiveness.
Yeah, any sort of plyometric work,
Right. Perfect.
Jump squats to a box, something like that.
Yeah.
Let's see, parallel bars. You know what parallel bars are?
They're bars that are not parallel to each other.
They are parallel.
They are
You're
parallel.
Thinking of the girls do uneven bars.
Yeah, because the guys, they're 2 different bars, right? The guys have the parallel bars and then
a single
bar.
Single bar.
Right.
It's actually a little bit thinner, and it gives it a little bit more bounce, so we can do tricks over the bar and stuff like that. But girls actually have the 2 uneven bars, which I always thought was really cool to watch in the Olympics as well. Especially since I didn't do that event, it's fun to watch other people master that. Yeah,
so you never did the parallel bar?
I did parallel bars,
right?
Which is just
the straight but
really
down
just
parallel.
two bars next to each
other. Promise
other.
I'm listening, I swear.
But no, I didn't do uneven bars or beam. Those are the 2 women's events that
men don't do. They don't do beam either, right?
Mm-hmm. But it's super fun to watch and super interesting, and
it's amazing.
I think I would be really bad at beam if I did it.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know how they backflips and do and spin and do all those things to stay on that and then flip off that thing. It's unbelievable. I mean, like I said, as a biomechanic, as a person that looks at those things, it's just amazing. Yeah. Even though posture is pretty bad for gymnasts, they kind of use women gymnasts as like they were saying like how poor posture affects sports, and they're like, look at gymnasts, their posture is horrible. A lot of anterior pelvic tilt.
Oh yeah.
A lot of unique posture issues, but I think that's for balance and to help out with center of gravity, and probably just also some of the muscles and stuff that they build.
Right.
They're definitely built.
Yeah.
There's some thighs and abs and glutes and all those things.
Yeah, that's just there's a lot of ways that we're either already implementing into our workouts here, or you can implement into your workout whenever you go to the gym. Is squeeze your butt, squeeze your legs. Isometrics,
hanging.
Thinking about each event. If you're really trying to train like a gymnast, think about each event and what that incorporates with like your core and hanging and power. You should
create the gymnast workout, and we'll sell it for $199. I will take 80% as a suggestionary, profit of it, and then you can take whatever's left over, and then I'll pay you from that to train me like a gymnast.
There we go.
There you go. See, we're all there. We'll set up the agreement after this. But yeah, that's awesome stuff, man. It's really neat to know that. Do you ever do gymnastics anymore? Do you ever go out? Because I know Casey every year. I think she goes just to show that she can still do some of those things, and she'll post it. You'll see, and she's amazing by itself. Do you ever still just do things?
Every now and then I'll do pommel horse again.
Yeah.
I don't ever do high bar rings because you usually have to wear grips. And I can do some stuff on high bar, but it's been so long that if I fall off of that, it's
we should go do something sometime. Good, if you take me there and I have a small skull fracture or something, it might make you feel better about your abilities. So.
And I make a point once a year to at least do a standing back tuck, a standing back flip.
Okay.
once a year, so make sure I can still do it.
Yeah.
See how long into my life I can still do that.
Yeah. Well, so. you got a few years to go, so I think you'll be all right. I think you'll be all right for a while. That's cool, man. Well, thank you for all that. I hope they all enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more and learning a little bit about gymnastics. But there's lots of things that you can play into your own workouts that would just basically make your workouts that you're doing now better. Or if you really wanted to train like a gymnast, or you had aspirations of doing some of those events or trying out some more athletic things like that, then you can start incorporating some of those ideas. So.
Right.
Cool stuff. All right. Anything else? Any closing that we need to? No? Okay. All right. Peace out. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a good one. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Living Wichita podcast with Go Time Training. If you enjoyed today's show and want to get started with your own fitness journey, I'd love to help kickstart your goals. How do 4 60-minute personal training sessions for $99 with me sound? Head over to www.gotimetraining.com/podcast to claim yours. I can't wait to meet you.